Is there a strategy that'll help you grow your company faster? CEO Sales Strategies is an investigative business podcast for entrepreneurial people who never stop asking questions. Highly acclaimed sales revenue growth expert Doug C. Brown interviews CEOs, business owners, and professionals who serve them to uncover and share actionable tips and methods behind their bulletproof sales strategies. Topics covered on the show include their failures, struggles, secrets, and processes that help them succeed in selling millions to billions of dollars of their products and services, all with the sole aim of helping you grow your business. If you are eager to know the most effective sales secrets from the A players of the game, then the CEO Sales Strategies podcast is certainly the place to be.
Hey everyone, this is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategies podcast, bringing you another great guest. His name is Mr. Vispi Daver, and he's from a company called WhatFix.com. They are a SaaS company, and you should check them out because they help make your existing software more productive. And they do it through accountability and measurement. And we talk a lot about it's okay to fail. And what does that mean? Well, it's okay to fail because it's more productive if you do it in the right capacity. We're going to talk at length about that. We're also going to talk about how do you actually sell to a CEO and a person like Vispi in a company that has got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of employees. And we also will talk a little bit about what the software does and how it makes your company and your offerings more productive. So without further ado, let's go to Mr. Vispi Daver and let's hear what he has to say. Vispi, welcome to the CEO Sales Strategies podcast. I really appreciate you being here.
Thanks a lot, Doug. I'm looking forward to it as well.
So I love your company name, WhatFix. And well, normally what I do is I tell people what it is, but what I've been doing lately is asking the person who comes on to actually explain what it is. So would you give everybody listening a background on what you do?
Absolutely. So what we do at WhatFix is provide a software overlay that goes on top of a company's software applications that they're using. And it helps with making sure that all of their employees or customers use the underlying software contextually and effectively. So imagine it as an overlay. So since we have a sales audience, let's say you log into your CRM, you've got your CRM that shows up, and then WhatFix as an overlay shows up in front of the CRM, guiding users contextually through what they need to do. A good example is, let's say I'm a sales rep and I look into my Salesforce, I'm told by WhatFix, here's what I need to do for the day. I need to update these opportunities. I need to create these opportunities or contacts, etc. And if I'm a sales manager or a head of sales, then I'll go into it and it'll show me, here are the reports that you need to view in Salesforce, etc. So the goal is to get people more productive in the software applications that they need to use on a daily basis, because each of these applications have a different UI, they're configured differently, etc. So that's what we do in a nutshell.
So it's really accountability and measurement and productivity software, really, when it comes down to it, that overlays over the let's take CRM, for example, because CEOs constantly telling me this, business owners constantly telling me this about their sales teams. I can't get accurate information into my CRM system. I don't know what the forecasts are real. Are they real? Are they not real forecasts, right? Those type of things. So your application actually solves that problem for the business owner or the CEO who's managing that.
It does. You should think of our application as a canvas. And the walkthroughs or overlays that get created are the paintings on that canvas. And those paintings can be very basic, taking care of a new seller or a new manager that's come on board, showing him where everything is relative and contextual to him or her in the CRM. It could be while you're closing a transaction, helping you get your CPQ quote in there, helping you get your contracts in there. So it navigates through multiple applications, your pricing, your CRM, your conversational intelligence, your contract lifecycle, all of that, e-signature, all of that navigating and helping the seller to close all of that faster. So yes, in the case you described, something is not accurately identified, the forecast isn't accurate, our overlays can come in and the painting painted over there could be one that mandates that it is updated every certain time period. or make sure the data is accurate, etc. So data integrity as well. So many beautiful, highly valuable paintings that have been creating using our software. And I'll pause there, but I've got one or two great examples if you want me to go in.
Please lay one on so everybody kind of gets the real point.
Great. So I'll share one of our customers, Fortune 500, uses us for their sales team. And this is applicable across the board, our small businesses all the way to Fortune 10 companies as well. So their sales team is a field sales team. And they had a very clear reason for having a field sales team is you need to visit customers more. So they have as they call it, a military operation, wherein when a seller wants to have a visit, that seller goes into their CRM, schedules that visit, and passes the handoff to their manager, who then suggests things and approves it. That visit is much more than just scheduling a number of meetings. Also, what gets done during the visit? What do you do? What are the things that you need to undertake, etc. And all of that military operation on their CRM is with WhatFix overlays guiding them so that they can make the right visits. So now that's a painting that is maximizing sales for the company to make sure that those visits are done in the best and optimized way. So again, empty canvas, you can create what you like. The standard paintings are training, onboarding, there's something new released by the CRM provider, or a new configuration that your Salesforce admin has done. Those are all sort of general and standard paintings that are out of the box.
Let's talk about accountability for a second, because I know, when we take, let's say, training, for example, we'll take training and we'll have somebody go through training programs. If they don't have an accountability coach, let's say, they get results. But what we did is and I have a client who did this, I'll use that client. We had one accountability session per month. We tried different configurations, but we found a one time a month accountability, somebody checking in, saying, hey, is this done? Is that done? Do you need help with this? What's that? We measured it over a 1-year period of time. We did a blind study with a split test, and we found that the people who had just one accountability touch a month were getting 6 times the results that people were getting without that accountability touch. So I can only imagine with your software that the overlay, that it's giving constant accountability to the person, because you can't run from this. It's like, hey, this is what's due, right? And as you were saying, measurement, people can see in the report side. So I don't know, and this might be an unfair question, but have you seen that companies are far more productive utilizing this because of the accountability alone, never mind the additional benefits that come out of this?
Yeah, really good question, Doug. That stat's really interesting. So let's see, if you look at what our overlay does for training is, typically a trainer will create a lot of content, video content, webinar content, etc. And a learner will get all of that information up front, and then they'll have to use the application. So they're getting training, let's say, on something that they're not going to use for 3 or 4 months until they close their first opportunity. So that disconnect is a major one. That's really important, because there's something in learning called forgetting curve, which means 80% of the information is forgotten in a week, I believe, is the exact definition. So in the flow of work, whether it's learning or changing user behavior, in the flow of work is where we come in. When I need to do my first pricing, that's when I need to learn how our pricing tool operates within the CRM. When I need to close my first contract, that's when I need to know how our contracting tool operates. So for us, it's A, putting it in the flow of work so it's adopted well. B is all of that training content we create automatically as well, because our walkthrough creates training content for the trainers as well. One of the trainers' problem statements is we create content, and with one little configuration change made by us, that content's out of date now. That never happens with us, because when you create a walkthrough with us, you'll automatically create a job aid, a video, a SCORM compliant LMS module, all of that automatically. And if you change any step in that walkthrough, it'll automatically change that. And then the last thing, the accountability. Sorry, it took me a while to get to it, but here it's now, I, as a trainer, I know that here's the number of people who have gone through this walkthrough through analytics. That number of people is, let's say that walkthrough is, how do I create my first opportunity? Or how do I set up my first pricing? So I will know as a admin that here are all the people who have done this walk through live in the flow of work with WhatFix. And here are the ones who have not, or here are the ones who struggle to do it, because we're even doing underlying analytics independent of the walkthrough. So we're seeing in that 5-step process of creating an opportunity, who are all the people who are struggling with it, even with or without the walkthrough, and get that data. And then you can do the manual accountability call saying, hey, I understand you haven't been able to create an opportunity and you've tried a few times. Let me guide you through it, et cetera. So it's aiding that accountability and validating your statistics.
So it's objective versus subjective selling, really, when it comes down to it.
Explain a little bit.
So objective selling is you can measure it. It's quantifiable, it's factual, it's the truth. Mm-hmm. Subjective selling is, hey, I've been putting the stuff in the CRM, or I've been using the pricing tool, or I've been doing this, but nobody's able to measure it. And no one's able to hold accountability to that process. You can only see it in the outcome of the sales one way or another. But objective, we can look at it. So for example, I measure ratios all the time with sales teams, and I look at them, I say, okay, this many leads comes in, this many calls are contacted, or this first contact happens, and I measure that. I know what the time is, etc. That's objective data, because I remember one time I had to say to a CEO, hey, 63% of your leads are not getting contacted. So the moment we put in an accountability process, miraculously within 3 days, that dropped from 63% down to 22%. And then we worked on the other 22% as well to get 100% contacted. So what I'm hearing is what you folks do. You give that objective data back to people, and is in real time. Is that accurate?
Yeah, the analytics, the sales operations or enablement can look at in real time. But for us, that objective data is all around what the users of the software that you've bought and configured, all of them, what the users are actually doing with it and where they're struggling. So that objective data comes in, yes.
So, a big complaint amongst larger companies or even smaller companies are, I'm not really utilizing my CRM to its components, so I'm staying with sales, but I'm not utilizing it, and I know people, for example, I have a client who has Salesforce, and I'm looking through it, I'm going, what about this? What about that? What about this? And they're like, we're not using that, right? And so the value of actually using the tool, I mean, we could have a lot of tools in our box, but if we're actually not using, a screwdriver to unscrew the screw, and we're trying to, use a screwdriver as a chisel, so to speak, it's not going to be as effective. You might get the screw out of there, but it's a heck of a lot more labor intensive and cost more in the long run. So that's what I love about your software, is it basically comes in and says, hey, we're going to make you way more productive utilizing the same tool you're already using. We're not going to ask you to change, but we are going to help you be far more productive. We're speaking with Vispi Daver. He is with WhatFix.com. Check out the software, folks. It's really cool. And I wanted to ask, how did the company start? In the beginning, how was the origin? How does it even come up?
Yes. So, the two founders of the company, they were based out of Bangalore, and they were working with a large tech company, Huawei, in the networking group on the product and engineering side. They wanted to spin themselves out and start a company of their own. They had an idea. That idea did not materialize. But in the study of it not materializing, they heard from prospective customers of that idea the concept of what WhatFix is. And they said, this is what we're struggling in. Can you build something around that? So that's what they went ahead and did. There was no category involved at all. They went ahead and did this. And then a category evolved out of it with vendors, et cetera. And the category is right now it's called digital adoption solutions or digital adoption platforms, because it's applicable to any software, whether it's desktop, web, mobile, thick client, also any application, CRM, HR, et cetera, whether internally built or externally. And then it's grown, et cetera, since then. So now we're at over 500 customers, 100 for Global 1000, all using us for multiple software applications. That's the interesting thing, Doug. You usually start with something and then it's, I need this for everything, because this is the mental UI and the direction and that I want for all my end users to be able to navigate through their software. Gartner has this statistic that says an average employee at a company has to know some portion of 14 different software systems. And we're that contextual guide that allows them to only learn the portions they need to, because no one needs to know all of it.
Right. Yeah, I know even with the, basic Microsoft suite, I mean, I probably use 2% of it when, in what we utilize. I find this fascinating because a lot of times companies are born out of what some people would call failure, right? Mistakes, things like that. We went into this direction and it didn't work out, and we find this new thing. And that's what I hear the origin of WhatFix has happened too. I remember I had a company that we were a landscaping development company, and we went out and we didn't really tap the market to figure out what they wanted because we thought we knew better. So we'd go out, we did it, we bought all this new equipment, and then we're running up against this. And what we found out is people wanted what they call cleanouts, which is like a company like 1-800-GOT-JUNK in the United States and Canada does today very successfully. We had brand new landscaping equipment at the end of the year that we had never used, right? But we had a really good clientele of cleanouts business. And what I love about WhatFix is they kind of went through a similar thing. And a lot of people view that as failure though, Vispi, but the two founders seemed to not view this as failure. They said, hey, we're going to pivot from point A to point B.
Yes. And, it's not just at that moment in time. The reality is every day we're dealing with these successes and failures. And the best companies are the ones that are the most flexible and able to identify these very early. And we study a lot, our path, Doug, is to create a $1 billion revenue company. And there's only 31 of them today. And we study them, and we study books written by the CEOs of them. And there's one called Amp It Up by Frank Slootman. And it lays out what to do here. And some of it we've been doing for a while. So one is, just to have what he calls, and we call it as well, we call it open, transparent. He calls it intellectual honesty. And the way to go about it is, that there should be complete freedom and psychological safety for anyone to experiment with anything, fail in it, and move forward in it. And if you keep having that and you have that culture, you should have lots of, I'd say, mini pivots along the way that's going to help build something great. So and his antithesis of that was, there are only 30 plus of these $1 billion revenue companies, but there's thousands of others, and they are intellectually lethargic, and mediocrity is tolerated. And so you have that mindset. And I often open calls internally with, what's not going well? That's what I want to know about the project. We don't, there's another good quote from one of my colleagues that says, good news is no news. No news is bad news, and bad news is good news, so you can get to work on it. So if you start being in the problem solving mode rather than the, let me tell you all the stuff that's going really well, whether it is or isn't, that's a path to changing that. So that pivot culture is there. We have in one of our culture principles says fail fast, which is a similar thing. But also if you look at the academic postulates around growth mindset and fixed mindset. So growth mindset is what entrepreneurs and startups need. And it's all about risk without the cloud or label or anything associated with failure. And there are so many examples of that throughout. And so we try culturally to model that. There's no harm, there's no negative to failure that we see here internally.
I want to unpack that a little bit because there was so much brilliance in that statement. What I got out of this is your company's flexible and you focus on problem solving versus the problem itself. And you work at it through a growth mindset with an open mind, just like as when we were children. We look at something and we go, geez, look at this butterfly. I wonder how it flies. And we try to figure things out. Is that how WhatFix, operates throughout? And the reason I'm asking this, it seems like this is a big success point for you. And a lot of companies, people listen, whether it's a $1 billion corporation or somebody who's got a $80 million company or somebody's got a $5 million company. I see many times people get into more of what I would call a fear stuck point, and they don't keep that concept in mind. But to me, that's where the growth happens. Is this what you do and continue to make your company successful doing so?
Yeah, it's not, also I'll elaborate, it's not easy because we all come with our DNA. That DNA is a combination of nature and nurture. Where were we in the last company, et cetera. And so to penetrate all this, don't worry about failure. Don't worry about the report card. This is new. We're attempting it. Go after it, and we'll take care of it appropriately. So those are all things that constantly have to be propagated, voiced, echoed internally, so that people get that. Because you don't get that, depending on the house you've come from, you don't necessarily change immediately. You've got to see examples of it. So I'm constantly opening statements or calls or emails with, hey, I made a mistake here. Here's what it was. Here's the path forward. Let's fail forward on it and move on. And that's all now normal culture, ideally, is what we want to happen there.
Why do you think people don't do this on a regular basis? Because it seems so easy when you said it. It's like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yes, I'm trying to think. So one is your inherent nature nurture that you come with, what I just described. The other is you hear it, but you don't see it. So you don't see examples of it. So you want everyone, especially senior people, to be talking like that and to be acting in that form. Those would be some of the big ones. Now, the flip side, Doug, is that some people whose nature and nurture are just born growth mindset, you don't need to stop them. They're like that, they'll take any challenge without the fear of failure. And those are the people who succeed the most, to be honest. They're the ones who are A, the most flexible, and B, the most accepting to receive goals that are high. And it's okay to fail, but you got to attempt them.
I love that. It's okay to fail, because when I talk with so many owners of companies or people who are running companies, and the majority of the ones that are successful and continue to keep growing is they adopt that mindset. It's okay to fail. It's okay to fail. And when we look back through time, I mean, even in the United States, you look at companies like Home Depot. Well, they were both fired from their job, right? And so it was, to them, originally it was a failure. But we have a major company player out of that. We look at, I don't know, take some things have gone wrong, and I think 3M had a product, you stick on the wall, right? That type of thing. But it was a failed chemical experience, that happened. So I like the fact of you're driving this through your whole company. And are you finding that you get more out of your employees by allowing them to embrace that concept?
We get more productive. So I'll give you an example. Let's say sales managers, right? You're constantly doing op reviews. Now I'll give you the two bookends of an op review. So one bookend is the sales manager hasn't reviewed the op inside of the CRM. They're asking for an update, and they are now inquisitioning the seller, and it takes 30 minutes to get through one opportunity. Now, the other bookend is sales managers, of course, well prepared, gone through it, and the seller leads with, here are the red flags, and here's what's not going well, and here's what I'm worried about. And it ends with everyone taking an action item to fix that. So as little time on good news is no news, and as much time on what are the red flags, because everything has a red flag all the time, even the minute before it's signing. And those take 5 minutes per opportunity. That's it in practice, what I laid out in practice. That's how it should ideally go. Now, it's not as easy as that, Doug, as you well recognize. Again, based on at the end of the day, you can hear examples from leadership, but you do what your manager does. That's a cultural reality. On an everyday basis, your manager does certain things certain ways, and that's what you do. So those are some of the challenges as you grow bigger. How do you penetrate that culture?
Makes a lot of sense. One time I worked for a company, and it was in the telecommunications space, and I thought we could do something, and I sold it, and I sold it to 6 major companies. And then I realized we didn't have it as a product set. So originally the company, the engineer staff was very upset. However, eventually they adopted that into a product set, and they made tens of millions of dollars in sales off that product set. So again, we can fail. I like what you're saying. It's like, it's okay to fail. It's more productive that way. So we figure it out through the process. We're speaking with Mr. Vispi Daver. He's from a company called WhatFix.com. Vispi, I really appreciate you being here. I could speak with you for hours, but I know you don't have time to do so, and want to know if you don't mind sharing with the people listening today, because I'm sure they're like glued into this. A guy like yourself running a major company like you're running, seeking to be $1 billion company plus and be in the top 31. If somebody wants to sell to your company, right? If they're looking to the like, wow, I've got this great fix for WhatFix or whatever it might be, but they want to approach you. A lot of people have challenges trying to figure out how to approach a guy like yourself. What do you look for in a buying relationship from somebody who's on the other side looking to initially make the relationship?
Yeah. And our marketing team, our BDR team often asks me this as well, for obvious reasons. So I'll share mine and I'll add what we found as well from our research and our practical experience as well. So, in general, the more quality and contextual research, the better, right? In general. So, and that should get as detailed as possible. So I'll give you a few examples of how this has worked for us. We have about 900 people in the company. We have several people all over the world, including a young and very successful team in India selling globally. Okay, that's a little bit unique. There's another maybe now probably 20 to 40 companies in India doing that, but there's a few like us that are bellwethers. So the very contextual research that this reach out was, it was a sales enablement and training consulting company. And they mentioned what they had done with our what we call laterals, which would be other companies like us who have 60% or 70% of their sales team in India. So very contextual. Here are usually the things you want to solve. People are learn very fast, very intelligent, but they don't have the enterprise selling experience. Here are the 3 things we did for ABC. That gets a call back immediately and a call tomorrow. What do they do? The second is also related to now, which is a reality, is a little bit of my competition's doing it, I should be looking at it. And to be honest, and we do it a lot at WhatFix, but not in a negative way. If we're calling into retail, we'll tell them our biggest retail customers and what they are doing. And that elicits interest all the time. And it has to go a level deeper. This is the most important. It cannot be, hey, you're in retail and we've got the largest retailer as a logo. That's not enough. People need to know what problem you are solving for them, and does that pertain to me? So I've got several like that from BDRs as well, and that's worked really well. And then the third that isn't as attractive to me, but it is in general, and it's in all the research and practical examples, is personal research on the individual, what they talk about, what they've posted on, and finding something to compliment them on, right? A post or something like that. So it validates you've read up on what the individual's doing, and it works, to be clear. I like I've got problems, can you figure those out? Yeah. What doesn't work is very high level statements. Do you want more leads? That's a really hard one to react to, of course, but how? Get into the details. Yeah.
So if I can boil it down into my language, I would say it's meaningful, relevant, valuable to you, communication on what matters to you in business and in your personal side of your life.
And what has someone like me done? What problems have you solved for someone like me in an existing situation in as much detail as possible? To me, that's the big one, right? Training sellers when you're hiring, 1.5 people a day is a big thing, right? So what have you done there? And an example of it with as much detail as possible. So that's me a little bit, because for me, it's sort of the time it's going to take to get that out of you is an ROI that one has to think about, right? And if at the end of it, it isn't there, then it's not as good a fit, and better to find that out earlier.
It makes total sense. If somebody wants to get a hold of WhatFix or know more about you, how do they do so?
You can go to our website, whatfix.com. If you're interested in looking at a demo, getting a quote, etc., just fill out a form on there. You can also email sales@whatfix.com. But again, we have no hierarchy or any of that. Vispi@whatfix.com, VISPI@whatfix.com. Please reach out directly.
Mr. Vispi Daver, thank you for being on the CEO Sales Strategies podcast. I'm very grateful you were here, and I know people listening will feel the same.
Thanks a lot, Doug. Thanks, everyone.
All right, so flexibility into problem solving, into growth mindset. It's okay to fail. It's more productive when you take it to that extreme. And I don't mean the extreme is a bad thing. I mean, when you're really hyper-focused on problem solving, it's really hard to have problems that are not solved because most people focus on problems versus the solution. You're never going to solve a problem by trying to focus on the problem. You're going to need to remove the cause of the problem, and that's what gives you the solution. And when you have your mindset in that place, it's like, hey, no matter what happens, it's okay to fail. It's more productive. You will be moving your business along the path of growth. And when you push it through the whole organization like he does, and people are allowed to, make mistakes, and they're not beat up for that purpose. They are actually, okay, how do we make this better? Because you're going to run into problems. Problems are guaranteed. It's death, taxes, and problems. They're going to be there in our lives no matter what. So check out the company at WhatFix.com. And again, if you want content specialized or general, and you have a subject matter you want us to, invoke for you, if you will, or put in play for purposes of you learning, reach out to me at doug@ceosalesstrategies.com. Let us know what it is, and we'll find the talent if we don't already have it up there ready to go for you anyways. And as usual, if you want to grow your company, grow your revenues, grow your sales team, get A players on how to hire, manage, train, and retain them, or yourself or someone or your sales team, you want them to be in the top 1% globally of sellers, reach out to me at doug@ceosalesstrategies.com. Or you can have Doug Brown 123, that's the LinkedIn, or reach out to us at the company direct at 603-595-0303. This is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategy Podcast signing off. Please go out and sell something today, sell a lot of it, make it profitable, make someone happy, and in turn, make yourself happy as well. Till next time, and to your success.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the CEO Sales Strategies Podcast. What is something that you learned that you could act on today? Don't forget to schedule it now, or it may never get forward momentum. If you find our content valuable, please leave a favorable review and let us know what you liked. Please also share this with others if the content will help them. For our show notes, other episodes, and more interesting content and resources, please visit ceosalesstrategiespodcast.com. See you soon, and to your continued success.